He stopped. He gathered. And he built. And number 4, he called. It's what the Bible says. He called on the name of the Lord. As I was studying this, I said to myself, but Lord, surely you've got to be impressed with the sermon that I'm preaching. And Lord, Lord, just think about the work that goes into worshiping every occasion. Just think of all the components. And Lord is saying, yeah, that's important. Yeah, that's important. But folks, it's like a drum roll when we get down in verse 8, and he called on the name of the Lord. He called on the name of the Lord. That's incredible. Five years ago, you don't know this, I was on vacation in the Gulf Coast of Alabama. My oldest son and I've grown up around the sea. My oldest son and I looked out across the waves, and it was pretty rough that day. And being such a superhuman being like I am, he and I decided to swim out through the waves to get to a sandbank. And so we did. I got halfway, and I couldn't go any further. There was a riptide. And I fought and I fought. The more I fought, the weaker I got. And eventually I started to go down. And I knew that I was about to drown. You didn't have to tell me that. I was so completely exhausted. My son Rob was ahead of me and had just put his toes onto the sandbank, and he looked back, and all he could see was my nose coming out of the water. And way back on the shore stood my other son Greg. And for some reason, without any notice or announcement, Greg looked up, and he looked again, and he kept seeing me disappear. And I lifted one arm and I did something like that. And my one son left that sandbank and came in this direction. And Greg, my other son, came across the water like a jet motorboat out of control. And when those two sons got to their dad, I was already gone. And those two boys picked me up, one on each side, and they lifted my head out of that water. And Greg screamed at the seashore, and a man sitting on the seashore saw what was going on, and he got one of those little floaty children's things and came charging out there. By then I could hardly remember anything. And they hoisted me up on this thing, and they brought me back to the shore. And I'm here today to tell you the story. That's what happens when we worship, my friends. Stop. Gather your family and your loved ones. Build an altar. And then call on the name of the Lord. And when you call on the name of the Lord, He'll do whatever it takes to get you to the shore. You make certain that you're carried safe to the other side. And that's radical. It's radical worship.